Well, sticking with the consumer here for a hot second, stubborn inflation forcing Americans to tighten those wallets and pocketbooks, and it's causing quite a whirlwind for online retailers like Etsy and eBay. With consumers pulling back on spending, more companies are worried over signs pointing to a consumer slowdown. For more on this, I'm joined by our very own Madison Mills. I mean, look, I remember shopping on eBay back in the day. That used to be like the inflation hedge, if you will. You find a good deal on some garden gnomes out there and you decide, how could I not buy it now?
You got garden gnomes in the Brooklyn apartment?
You know, I missed out on the garden gnomes that were at the Masters at Augusta a couple weeks back, so maybe it's just me being upset about that. I don't know. What are we seeing now?
I mean, I get that, because here's the thing. You can get cheaper products on both of these platforms, but the question is whether or not these companies are using their capital to reach consumers and tell them that. And based on these results, they're not necessarily doing that, but it does paint a broader picture about whether or not the American consumer is starting to buckle under the weight of inflation. Results in both Etsy and eBay underlining weakness in consumer discretionary spending. At Etsy, merchandise sales were down 3.7%. Now, an interesting economic indicator with Etsy is what's going on with the sellers, because sellers are increasing their prices because they too are people who are dealing with stubborn inflation. They need to increase prices to be able to withstand their own pricing pressures that they have in their own lives. So Etsy is trying to draw them in with things like Depop, for example, which is part of Etsy, dropping their seller fees to allow for an increase in items listed on the platform. But look at where eBay and Etsy are in terms of the stock price year to date compared to a stock like Amazon that is up over double digits. When you're competing with the Amazons of the world, it's very difficult to maintain market share. And what does that mean for the American consumer? It might mean that they are turning to an easier option like an Amazon, or a cheaper option like a Walmart or a Wayfair, which had incredible earnings this cycle, as opposed to these options that are perhaps a little bit more expensive and a little bit more time intensive as well, because you have to really be searching for these products, Brad.
All right. Interesting reactions that we're seeing here on the day for sure. And especially as we're thinking about what the consumer is doing to really try and look for deals to offset where they're seeing other inflationary pressures right now.
Right.
Maddie, thanks so much.
Thank you, Brad.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.